Hey everyone, and welcome back to Illumineers Quest podcast, where we talk everything Lorcana. I'm Zach.
And I'm Jacob.
And thanks for coming on this journey with us. Okay, so this is a first for us. This is a re-record. We messed up the first time we did this. I screwed up the mic settings. So we're re-recording, but I think it benefits us with some news that's come out.
It does. The last one, I think, was our longest episode yet, if we would have published it. So maybe we're learning to maybe shorten this one a bit too. So
speed it up a little bit.
Speed it up a little bit.
So anyways, this episode is on one. I think our news is going to be on Chapter 2 cards, but that flows directly into the main topic of today, which is going to be like our hopes and wants for not only Chapter 2 but and beyond. You know, we've already talked about the want on some of the Chapter 2 stuff with like Raya and other things that we had already planned, but this has been planned for a long time, so we're going to just kind of like go and beyond into some other properties and like Pixar things, and so it'll just be fun to talk about like where we see the game going and what we'd like to see in the future.
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, so again, we have a bunch of comments on this one from listeners and from like tweets and stuff, and so if you'd like to reach us, you can comment on any of our YouTube videos, which is, Illumineers Quest on YouTube. You can message us on Twitter at LorcanaPod. You can email us at lorcanapod@gmail.com. And then if you're listening on YouTube, you can follow us on Spotify, Apple, iheart, or for any of the other major podcast channels. Okay, so with that said, let's get into the episode here. So, card of the week.
So I'm going to go with Simba. Is it Brave Cub? Prideful Cub?
Protectful Cub.
Protectful Cub.
I'm going with that, and I'll correct myself if I'm wrong, so continue.
So I've been playing with more colors or inks than just ruby and amethyst lately. Protective, okay. And I've been doing a little bit of emerald, a little bit of amber. And this card has caught me off guard with just how versatile it is. It's got...
Extremely.
It's the 2-cost Bodyguard Simba.
Inkable, 2 cost, 2 strength, 3 willpower with Bodyguard on a 2 cost is insane.
It obviously protects stuff like Lilo and Amber, or depending, if you're playing Emerald too, your Flynns, your Mad Hatters, Cusco's, stuff like that it really helps protect. And really you can use it in any way you want to protect whatever you want. Even only if it's one turn,
or even late game or mid game, if it's just another layer that people have to attack through to get to Rockstar Stitch or to get to Rapunzel or somebody else that's more of a questing threat. It's still just another layer, and so I love Amber. Amber's one of the main decks that I've played for mid range ish, and Simba is one of my favorite in that for sure.
Absolutely, it's one of the best for sure. One of the best Bodyguard cards, period.
Yeah, I mean, the other Bodyguard cards are good, obviously, and take a little bit more tankiness to get through, but it's more just that deflective that you have to go through something in general. I think that makes it the annoyance factor there. So
it's really, really helpful in a lot of situations.
Extremely strong. I agree, and so yes, I completely. I commend you on this card of the week because I love him too. He's one of my favorites in Amber for sure. Okay, so what's on our mind / news? Kind of alluded to this just a minute ago, but there have been so many new cards that have been released.
I believe 9 in total that we're going to talk about here today.
And one came out, so we're recording this on Sunday, October 8th, and one came out late last night. That's a new legendary in Emerald, and my mind is blown, and I'm already in the kitchen cooking up new strategies for Chapter 2.
It is in the conversation for best card in the game.
So we're going to come back to that one. I'm going to save that one for last, and we'll roll through some of these other ones. So let's start with, there's only one Ruby, so let's start with Minnie Mouse here. Minnie Mouse Wide-Eyed Diver is a 4-cost inkable card. 2 strength, 3 willpower. She has a shift ability onto the 1-cost mini that's currently in the Ruby set. She has evasive, so that's cool. And her ability's a little high of a bar to get to the threshold, so I don't think she's super powerful, but the ability is whenever you play a second action in a turn, this character gets +2 lore for this turn, so she can quest for 3. If that activation of that ability is just so high, I don't think it's super playable. I think the biggest advantage of this comes to being a shift 2 evasive card,
and that's basically what it is. There's nothing. It's really just a 2-cost Pascal basically, and that's That's kind of all it is at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it has some strength and willpower. So if you want to deal with it with a normal evasive card, you'd have to spend 3 or 4 ink, and so I think it just gets those evasives out a little quicker. But in general, I think it's a mid-range card, not super strong, not super weak, but it'll find its way into some decks, I would imagine. But yeah, so that's mini, and then we can move on to Steel, which has 3 new cards to talk about. Starting with what I think is probably the weakest one, even still, with the finale card we're going to talk about today, is Robin Hood Capable Fighter. He's a 2-cost, uninkable, which I think just uninkable just is it has to be super important. If it's uninkable, it has to really, really, really play a ton of value to make it into a deck. 1 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 1, but has an ability that says exert to deal 1 damage to chosen character, which, kind of replaced Blaster in that regard, the Plasma Blaster item. But I think it being uninkable and it exerting to make itself vulnerable, it doesn't lend itself a lot of help.
Yes, I mean, that is for sure. I just think that maybe with the finale card, if you have multiple Leas on the board, maybe this isn't the biggest threat to your opponent, so maybe they leave them on the board and you can keep dealing out those 1 damage.
Could also predict that that's coming and want to take him out early because of that, but
I mean, I think the uninkable does hurt it. I don't know why. I don't think this is near broken to be uninkable.
Agree.
But I could see its use.
I think it does have some utility, but again, I think it's on the same level of many, where it's kind of niche and it's not the most OP card in the game, and so it'll find its way into some deck. But yeah, okay. So next, a item in Steel is Mouse Armor. It is a 2-cost, again uninkable, but its action for the item is exert. Chosen character gains resist +1 until the start of your next turn. So it resists +1 on the turn that you exerted and your opponent's turn. So it helps a little bit. Again, I think it's cool. I think there's so much other resist that we've seen already that, again, being another uninkable card, maybe it's helpful, maybe it's not.
If there's a card you want to protect for 1 turn, then this is helpful in that regard. Maybe this can help one of your best cards survive a Maui for 1 turn, something like that. But other than that, I don't see big use out of it.
I could see it being super fun having 4 of these on the board and just making it impossible to take a card off. But
that's very true.
It would be so hard to get to a point where that's valid that I think you would be so far behind in it. But
now this maybe works on a Tamatoa deck or something like that. This could be really good.
Yeah, that's true. That very well could be. But anyways, again, I think uninkable has to have a lot of super useful utility, and I just don't think it's quite there yet. The next one in Steel isn't super exciting alone, but giving the shift target, it is super exciting. So we have the shift target for the big Cinderella in Steel. The Cinderella Knight in Training is a 2-cost inkable, 2 strength, 2 willpower card that has the Simba ability from Steel, which is whenever you play this character, you may draw a card and then choose and discard a card. So good to shift through your deck to get to the big Cinderella. Good shift to your deck to get to Big Tink maybe if you still want to play her. So nothing crazy. Great shift target. But yeah, so I think it's going to be played in a lot of decks because of Cinderella.
It does not matter because you get to play that insane Cinderella for 5.
Yep, that's all that matters.
All it matters.
Okay, getting to the main ink here. We have five Emerald cards to talk about.
Insane.
So we're going to run through these. First one is Hypnotize. It's a cool Jungle Book card from Jungle Book. The action is each opponent chooses and discards a card, and you get to draw a card. So in that Emerald realm of disrupting your opponent's play, also helping yourself out a little bit with draw, I think being 3 cost is a little bit too high of a bar, again, to really make this valuable. If it was a song, I know you've said that, then it would probably be a little bit more helpful.
I think if it was Trust in Me, the song, be much better.
Yeah, if you could sing this on turn 3, I think it would be incredibly disruptive and really, really powerful there. But as it stands, it's probably, it's on the lower tier for sure.
I mean, it has its uses. You're getting card draw in Emerald, which is nice. Just there's better ways to do that, I think.
Yep, and we'll talk about that one right now. I think a much better option is one of the other newest cards that has come out for Emerald is called Improvise, and it's a Mulan fighting Shen Yu card, and so I love the art and the Improvise behind it. It's a 1 cost, so cheaper than Hypnotize, and its ability is chosen character gets +1 strength this turn, and you get to draw a card. So Emerald doesn't have much fighting capabilities, so I like that it helps you there. It replaces itself, so I like that there. And I also like that Mulan is fighting with an ice cream bar.
It's not an ice cream bar.
I'm very much aware, but you look at that and tell me that doesn't look like an ice cream bar.
I can tell it's a fan. I can tell it's a fan.
Come on, be fun here. Okay, but no, anyways, I like Improvise a lot more than Hypnotize.
I mean, I would consider playing this if it was just draw a card. Like, if I was really trying to get to something in my deck, I would consider having this in it. Like, but the added gets 1 damage this turn is great. I think it's solid for what
I think it is too. And talking about the +1 strength and the adding to the Emerald's challenging abilities comes in a 1 card but 2 card reveal,
yes.
being Panic, Underworld Imp from Hercules, which Panic, in the Panic card, it mentions Pain, his good trusted sidekick or buddy, I guess. And so Panic is a 3 cost uninkable card, 2 strength, 3 willpower, quests for 2, so that's kind of nice. Mm-hmm. But his ability is whenever you play this character, chosen character gets +2 strength this turn. If character is named Pain, then character gets +4 strength this turn. So they definitely have some synergies there, but in general, again, you're adding some challenging abilities to other cards in your Emerald deck, which I think can help you outlast some aggro decks and get to the ramp up of your Mad Hatters, your Cuscos, your Hanses, and so forth.
I think it's a really decent ability for a 3 cost 2 lore quester.
I think so too.
It's ways to quest and then get your attacking going on the board. I think it's really decent card, and who knows what Pain is? He could be a really high attacker.
That's true.
So who knows?
Yeah, I think again the only notch against this one is there's so many uninkable cards in Emerald already, mm-hmm. that having another one uninkable is going to be hard. I mean, Cusco is extremely valuable. Genie, I know, makes its way into a lot of decks, and so it's just going to be hard to fit in, but I do see a world where that can be really valuable too. Okay, moving on to the second to last card would be Bucky, Squirrel Squeak Tutor from Emperor's New Groove. It is a 2 cost inkable, 1 strength, 1 willpower card, has ward, and so it's a really disruptive card because you can't directly challenge it, and it's mainly, from what I understand, just meant to stay on the board because his ability is whenever you play a Floodborn character, each opponent chooses and discards a card. So he's mainly meant to just play, not to quest until you're in the striking distance of winning, and then just really disrupt your opponent late game.
I don't know. When I saw this card, it didn't make sense to me. I just think having ward on a 1 strength.
It is Rise of the Floodborn, though. So there's going to be a ton of Floodborn cards, I would think, to play to activate that ability to disrupt your opponent. This card isn't meant to help you. It's meant to disrupt your opponent. That's the way that I see it.
I mean, I see that for sure. I have to, a lot of these, I'd have to wait and see.
Yeah, I think we'll have to see how the set fills out, and if there are a really good amount of Floodborn targets to use that ability on, then it could be really, really, really awesome. Okay, but, I think we've waited long enough. Getting to the big bad of the new news is another legendary beast in Emerald, which is crazy enough to begin with, but it's a 6 cost inkable beast, Relentless, 4 strength, 5 willpower, quests for 2, and his ability, drumroll please, is whenever an opposing character is damaged, you may ready this character. And nowhere in there says you cannot quest the rest of this turn. So you can quest with Beast multiple times in 1 turn, and you also have the ability to, if Beast is challenged and damaged, or somebody else on your team is challenged and damaged, like a bodyguard, then he gets readied up and he's not vulnerable anymore.
Best card in the game conversation.
I really think so too, because I've been cooking all morning long thinking through this one. So imagine a scenario where you're playing Emerald, Steel, and you have Fire the Cannon. You have Big Tink that comes on and does 1 chip damage. You have Big Tink that can damage an opposing character from challenging and then deal damage to another opposing character with her ability when she banishes somebody. So there's 8 lore in 1 turn from a shift target of 4. And you're probably playing that on like turn 6 or 7 because Beast costs 6. So like if you have 10 and you have Beast on the board, like you're in striking distance to winning the game from 10.
My brother Tyler is a big Steel player. I have a feeling I'm going to be in bad shape come chapter 2.
I have news for you. I think I'm a Steel player. I love Emerald. I hate Steel because of all that chip damage. I've thought of other possibilities with like the Cogsworth, where he gives all the Cogsworth and Aurora and Sapphire, where he gives everybody resist and ward so that you have a ton of protection around Beast. I've thought of Amber, where you have a ton of healing to all the characters that are going to be challenging and doing damage to ready Beast back up. But I think Steel is probably the biggest one. But yes, Beast Relentless, Legendary Emerald, I am ecstatic for this card.
And I think the biggest way to use this with Steel would be to ready quest, and on that last one, keep it readied so it's not vulnerable to attack, so you can do it the next turn.
Depending on the characters that the opponent has on the board, that's definitely an option. But again, if they only can deal like 2 or 3 damage in their turn, Beast has a strength of 5, and so you don't even have to worry about it. You just leave him there, make them attack him, and then he readies up, and they can't finish him off. And so again, it depends on the scenario. But yes, to your point, I think in most situations, you're going to want to have him ready to where you have to use a Be Prepared or a Dragonfire or a Let It Go or something like that to remove him off the board.
I mean, he's a 6 ink, so the Mauis are out there, so you probably want to keep him readied.
If you're playing Ruby, for sure, yeah. You know, I know that there's obviously a lot of Sapphire players and a lot of Amber players and a lot of Steel players, and so again, I think it depends on the scenario. Most cases, keep him ready. Okay, I know that's really fast through Beast, and I could talk about him for probably another 30 minutes and do a whole episode on that, but I want to get into the main topic because this is super exciting to talk through.
One that has been in the works for a long time.
This might have been like our first episode that we thought out. Like genuinely. Like we've had notes on this since the beginning because we've been so excited.
I mean, we've slowly built the list up more and more over time. But some of them have been confirmed since we've made the list to be in the game.
That is true also, yes.
But overall, I've been looking forward to this one.
Okay, so we're going to break this down into 2 sections, if you will. So first one being like properties and new characters, new cards, new movies, new even like getting into the Pixar realm kind of, options and talking about some of that. And then the second piece of this, we're going to get into like new mechanics potentially, new way to, cards could be utilized, new inks. Is that a question maybe that comes up? So just other ways that the game will evolve and change from a mechanics and a playability standpoint. So, okay, your favorite properties that you want to have in not only set 2, but set 3, 4, 5, 6. Let's hear it.
So they already did one, Great Mouse Detective. I was very excited for that.
High on your list, I remember that.
That was very high. I'm glad that we've got at least an item so far. Hopefully we get some characters in there. Oswald, the Lucky Rabbit, I'd love to see. Atlantis, characters from Atlantis, the Lost Empire. More characters from Treasure Planet.
Yep.
Meet the Robinsons. That's a deep cut.
We disagree on that one a little bit. I think the T-Rex would be fun, but yes, Meet the Robinsons.
Meet the Robinsons. Ichabod and Mr. Toad.
I think that's a very deep cut.
It is, for sure. I mean, like, Headless Horseman is pretty well known-ish, I think, though.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
If you were to bring him in with Mr. Toad, maybe that would work. And then Hunchback of Notre Dame would be very nice. So Quasimodo in there.
Quasimodo and Esmeralda are iconic, I think. Like
for sure.
In that realm of like iconic 90s characters from, the golden age of or for me at least, the golden age of Disney. So
absolutely.
Okay, so I'm kind of in the same boat as you. Like Raya and the Last Dragon was towards the top of my list. And so that's already been announced. We have a really underwhelming Raya, so hopefully we get, a Floodborne Shift target on top of that Raya. Wreck-It Ralph is another fun one with like Vanellope and Ralph and Fix-It Felix and a couple of those characters. Jungle Book we've already seen too. I mean, Mowgli and Baloo. It's not my favorite property, but Mowgli and Baloo again are like two of the most iconic Disney characters, and so you have to throw them in there, right?
Bare Necessity song probably be
Bare
super
Necessity
OP.
song. You already talked about the song with Ka. You know, maybe they throw that one in there too as another song involved in the set.
Who knows?
Lady, I'm a huge dog lover, so Lady and the Tramp would be a super fun one. You know, and all their buddies along the way. And so I think that, you know, having Lady and Tramp in there would be really, really cool as well. Getting into like Rescuers, that's a little bit more of a deep cut. You know, I think we both agreed on that one. Would be cool to see.
Rescuers Down Under especially.
Rescuers Down Under, I think we both agree is our favorite one of the two as well. So yeah, that would be a big one. And then lastly, Tarzan. I mean, again, not my most favorite property, but a huge one and a ton of fun characters that you could be involved in there. So yeah,
I mean, I love the movie for the Phil Collins music. That's my favorite part.
But again, there's so many song options.
Yes.
There. So I mean, those are kind of like overview of, you know, like our preferences and like styles and everything. What are your like top, like, do you have any specific like card that you want to see and like any abilities or anything built around that said card?
So I think I'll go to one of my favorites, Treasure Planet, for this. I think the character of Morph could be interesting because he always shape shifts into something else. So maybe there's some kind of mechanic where he can copy someone else's ability.
That'd be sick.
I don't know I don't know how you'd work that in with maybe a lesser known character. Maybe you want to add that ability onto a more well known character.
No, I think if you go into the Treasure Planet universe, then you have him there and go for it. I mean, I'd say there are some characters out there now that aren't super well known in the set that's already been out. So throw them in there. You know, that'd be fun. I think on my side, and I'm actually stealing this one from you because I liked it so much from the episode that will never be heard because it was terrible audio, but Fix-It Felix from Wreck-It Ralph. Like, imagine Fix-It Felix just being like the ultimate powerhouse healer. Like, you can draw off his heals, or you can, I don't know, like, quest off of his heals, or like, I don't know, like the ability to like just be super versatile. So like, I think everybody would consider Rapunzel to be the best healer / support character in the game right now. But her versatility is all based off of removing damage and then drawing off of it. So it's very linear on you get to draw cards. But imagine like, I don't know, something incredibly OP where you can choose to draw cards, or you can choose to quest somebody or ready a card up, or like you have the option to do like a bunch of different things off of his heals and his support. That to me just seems like a no-brainer because he is the Fix-It Felix and he fixes everything. So why not have the option to fix everything?
I mentioned this on the original episode as well. As how about if by fixing someone, he can reactivate their on-play ability?
Yes, that, and I didn't say that because I was hoping you would chime in and say that. I mean, that would be crazy if you can like reactivate abilities. So I don't know, like I'm thinking of Rapunzel again is the big one to like draw on, or you know, Tink when she gets activated, Big Tink when she gets activated, she deals 1 damage to everybody. Like something like that where you could reactivate those abilities. They make them a lot bigger threats to be on the board because they can keep activating those abilities that can be really annoying to deal with.
For sure.
Or even like LeFou, where he gets to ready chosen character, so like you can ready him and then ready somebody else, and then like you can keep this crazy cycle going. Like that would be nuts.
It would be for sure. So possibilities even with just Wreck-It Ralph are pretty endless.
Yep, and then the one I didn't mention on mine was Big Hero 6, and the reason I didn't mention it is because I think it kind of like overarches like our main thoughts at what we would like to see in future sets would be like teams. You know, like Big Hero 6 in my mind is like the ultimate team with Baymax and Hero and Go-Go and Honey Lemon and like all the members of the squad. Like if you could come to League with a Big Hero 6 deck, like that would just be so much fun.
If they have movie themed decks with characters and teams, I would be the most hyped I've ever been for Lorcana if they did that. Like if I played my Hercules deck versus your Big Hero 6 deck. Incredible.
That would be incredible. Like just the fun behind it, because it's like they have a little bit of that in today's sets. I mean, there's a ton of Aladdin characters. There's a good amount of like Rapunzel characters, and there's a few other properties. I mean, Frozen, there's obviously a ton, but they're spread across all of the inks, it feels like, and so there's no way to really build like a Frozen deck or to build an Aladdin deck. And so having the option where they like strategically put Hero and Baymax into an ink together and put Honey Lemon and Go-Go into another ink together so that you can combine those two inks to build your Big Hero 6 deck.
And I think there's another game, a Disney game that we used to play. Disney Sorcerer's Arena was a mobile game where Big Hero 6 was one of the most meta teams for the longest time in the game. And then, like, the Hercules team would come along and beat it. Yeah. And then there would be a Beauty and the Beast team that would beat that. And then it just... I cannot wait for that to happen at some point in Lorcana.
Same.
Just to be able to fight with different movies, each other, I would love that.
And it doesn't even necessarily have to be like movies, and we've kind of seen it with like the Princess deck, with like the Amber Sapphire, so there is a little bit of that today. But even like an original 6, you know, like a Mickey and Friends deck with like Mickey and Pluto and Minnie and Donald and like all of those, like having a crazy deck that you could build together. I think just having that option to like turn your favorite properties into your hand or into your deck would be like really enticing to get people engaged in the game and to make it, you know, fun and new dynamics and new theme decks and everything and all of the above. So that's like my overarching hope or want for like longer term would be to make those teams.
Mine too.
And I think that, you know, transitions very smoothly into like the next possible team / expansion, which would be the Incredibles.
And Pixar overall.
So getting into Pixar, yeah. So if you're doing the Incredibles team, you have to then be okay with doing Pixar. And so before we touch on the Incredibles specifically, I think we both pretty much agree on Pixar here, but how do you feel about the expansion possibility into Pixar?
I think it would be... I mean, I want it big time, obviously. I think it's a lot easier to do than other expansions that have been discussed. By the fans.
Yep.
I think this one is definitely going to happen the soonest compared to those others, which we'll get into a little bit. But I think it's doable, very doable.
I think so too.
And very exciting. I mean, some of the most popular movies of all time and Toy Story are in the Pixar realm of things. So if we can get those characters in Lorcana, that'd be very exciting.
Yeah, I think Pixar is the most natural transition. With Brave, you know, Merida being a Disney princess, it makes a lot of sense to, like, you know, fold in Merida and her 3 crazy younger brothers. I always forget it's Hamish, Hamlet, and they're all H names. I can't remember, but
you're making me feel bad. I love that movie and I forgot their names.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so we're not just troves of Disney knowledge. Clearly, we're big fans. But anyways, so like Merida and, you know, like the bear. Mordu would be insane, a villain potentially.
Yes.
And so I think that's, you know, like a natural transition into Pixar. And if they're doing kind of team theme decks like we talked about, obviously Incredibles with Mr. Incredible and Elastigirl and Dash and Violet would be insane. And then obviously you get into some of the supporting characters from them as well. But we haven't even talked about the biggest Pixar characters. Imagine how nuts it would be with Buzz and Woody.
We have to get there at some point in Lorcana.
I think it happens. I say it's probably at least a few years down the road, but it happens for sure.
So I'm thinking somewhere within the realm of a year.
I think it could happen, but I think that's one of those, like, you go through most of you start to run out of Disney stuff, and then you unleash the floodgates on Pixar. I could be wrong, though. I could very well be wrong.
Just imagine Floodborn art of Buzz and Woody. So good, man.
And Jesse and Rex and Mr. Potato Head and Lotso and...
Mr. Potato Head Floodborn. Let's go.
I mean, there's just... there's such a... And Slinky Dog.
Yes.
It's insane. There's just so many
Forky.
options. I mean, I'm
pushing for Forky.
We're talking about one Pixar property. Then you have Nemo, and you have Cars, and you have Inside Out, and you have...
Bug's Life.
WALL-E. We didn't even talk about WALL-E in the never will be seen cut of this.
There's probably my number one in Pixar as well, WALL-E.
And then one of my, I think it's a deep cut, even though it shouldn't be, would be good old Ian and Barley.
Onward, man.
From Onward.
I love that movie. It's so underrated, I think.
Yeah,
it did not get its fair love.
I mean, imagine Ian and Barley being an Amethyst. Like, it just...
Manticore?
It fits perfectly into Amethyst.
Maybe a good gelatinous cube card,
That would be an insane action to like go, insta-banish somebody from Amethyst, because that's what happens if you get sucked into the gelatinous cube. You just, you're gone at that point. So I think Pixar, it has the same kind of feel, a lot of the same just kind of vibes that you get from your Disney animation. So I think that makes a lot of sense to continue to expand into that. The one that I think will also most likely happen, which would be really fun because, again, big Disney fan, big Disney park fan, would be like Disney live action.
Yes. I mean, there's a few big ones on the brain. Tron and Pirates of the Caribbean.
I couldn't agree more.
Caribbean?
Both work.
See, I say the Caribbean Sea, but Caribbean when I say Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, I say Pirates of the... I think I do both, too. I think I actually do that the exact same way. So either works. But yes, I mean, those would be my two big ones as well. But I think there's obviously tons of options to get into live action.
I mean, a Davy Jones card, that'd be sick.
Again, there's just the amount of characters that you can tap into would be so cool. And then, I mean, and then like taking the live action like one step further and getting into like parks properties. Mm-hmm. So like a whole new world. Or not a whole new world. It's a small world would be insane, and some of the other like properties that, I mean, a lot of them are integrated into other Disney movies now, but I think that's a big one, like Haunted Mansion,
Harold the Yeti, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, you got some stuff like that. I think I mean, again, Haunted Mansion has been made movies, but it's still not like near as mainstream a movie as you get.
Hitchhiking Ghosts would be awesome.
Yeah,
as a card,
that'd be insane. So cool. And then Jungle Cruise was a movie recently, but I think again it's still very much a park property, and so getting into like Jungle Cruise, Matterhorn, Space Mountain,
The Birds from Tiki Room, that'd be awesome.
I mean, that's a deep cut, but I would love that too. Like the People Mover is a deep cut for me. I don't know. I mean, how maybe it's like to shift some things around on your board.
It's an item, maybe. Yeah.
So I think that's definitely longer down the line. Like call it 4 or 5 years to get into park stuff.
Now live action, I think could be before Pixar.
There's a possibility.
Like Pirates of the Caribbean, I could see before Pixar.
I think there's a possibility. I definitely don't know their plans. We've heard that Ravensburger and Disney have 4 years planned out or something crazy like that. So they very well might already have like these expansions and these ideas already in their head and kind of, know when they're coming to these properties. But that being said, those are like the two that I think like Pixar has to happen. We need it to happen. I want it to happen. I must have it.
Yes.
Disney parks, I'm almost as high on that as Pixar. Like I would love to have Captain Jack and all of his supporting pirates on top of,
Will Turner. Come on.
I know. I was gonna say I was kind of like getting into like the opposition side, like your Davy Joneses, like your Barbosas, but obviously like Will Turner, I mean, is a must.
Salazar, even from the newest one, I'm a big fan.
Yeah, I like Salazar a lot too. And so that again, you can just, I mean, you can build a ton of cards around these guys, and so I hope it happens. Those I imagine will. We've also gotten some comments on like other possible expansions into Marvel and Star Wars, which it's possible that we're bigger Marvel and Star Wars fans than we are Disney. I think they're like on our tier lists of like, likes / our fandom.
I'm a bigger Star Wars fan than anything else. I can say that easily.
I think we both agree that Marvel Star Wars probably don't have a place in this.
I don't want it yet.
I don't think I do either.
Now, let's say 15 years down the line, right, where Lorcana needs a little bit of a spice things up, then sure. Then it's probably a good time. If we ever get there. But I don't see a world where that really makes sense, because you'd have to, adding those characters, do you go deep cuts with the normal Disney movies or Pixar, or do you go deep cuts into Star Wars and Marvel? Do you just do the main characters of those?
Yeah, I think it's just, it would be really, really, like, Iron Man is my guy, like my go-to. You said Star Wars. I'm a Marvel guy, probably first. Iron Man, but I just can't imagine, like, Iron Man battling Mickey.
So, there was a video game I used to play. It was called Disney Infinity. It was a Toys to Life game. And in each phase of that game, They like the second phase was Marvel.
Yep.
The third phase was Star Wars.
Yep.
And they really couldn't dive in to either of those. They kind of just had to do with all three, Disney, Marvel, and Star Wars. They just had to do the main things of each and really couldn't dive into any of those specifically.
Right.
And it limited them in that game specifically. So I think if we ever get there, it's going to be a while.
Yeah, I agree. I definitely don't want it anytime soon. And I think if they do it, I hope they do it as like an offshoot or like a sub branch of the game that doesn't like join into the main line, where it's like a special edition, like one time, don't get played in leagues, but more as like a collector kind of deal.
We've seen that recently with the Lord of the Rings Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of its subset, and those characters and those cards don't play into the main set.
Something like that I would be okay with. But again, as big a fan as I am, I'm also a massive Disney fan, and just like the magic and the aura behind Disney, like just kind of want to keep that whole. So
for sure.
Yeah. So I think that kind of covers like how far we want to push the boundaries. But yeah, so getting really quick into a few of these last ones to wrap this up. Kind of looking at the mechanics of the game going forward. We've already seen some of that released with Resist being a new mechanic.
Very excited about that one.
Resist I like a lot. I think that adds a ton to the game.
That's high on our abilities tier list.
Yes, I think so too. Especially depending on the decks that you play, Resist will be a really fun one. But the first question I'll toss out here to you, what about a dual ink card? So it can be played as an Emerald or as a Ruby, and maybe depending on whichever deck you're playing it in, it has maybe slightly differing abilities or something along those lines.
The main thing that comes to mind when I think about this is how we get closer to that movie-themed deck, that team deck.
That's a good point.
Because you can have a better chance of getting them all in one deck.
Yeah.
And I think that's the main thing that comes to mind for me, is just able to have more synergies available. Now, I don't know, maybe we'd have to have a few more inks for this to be possible, maybe. So there's more options. But I mean, I could see it at some point. I mean, Pokemon did it at one point where there was dual types.
Yep.
That never caught on and was pretty gimmicky. But I could see it working for this.
Yeah, I think it could be okay. I think you have to be really careful with how you do it, because, you know, when we started playing this, again, you know, we've kind of come along this journey together with everyone, is that we're definitely noobs in this. And when I started off, I was like, oh, there'll definitely be more inks, or there'll definitely be stuff to add to that. But I think every ink has such a specific identity now, and like knowing the game much better than I did when we started, like really helps me understand that. And so you really have to be, you know, very selective with the way that you would to do that, because you don't want to like destroy those identities of all the different inks. And so along that same line, I don't know, like what would a new identity for a new ink be? You know, you have your healing, you have your questing, you have your power, you have your ink build, you have your damage
Card
dealers.
draw.
Yeah, you have your, so like I don't know, like again, I think there'd have to be like a lot of new mechanics to like build an ink around. And so I just don't think we're there yet. And so I hope that if they do stuff like this, it is, you know, again, like they definitely build the foundation of the game before changing it too much. So,
I mean, is there a specific Star Wars ink called Force? Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
that would be insane for sure.
And that's maybe getting me a little hyped even thinking about that, but we're not. It's getting me a little excited thinking about it. But I don't know. I like, to your point, the new identity would just be really tough to get to with. I think for me and you who are new to TCGs, it's kind of hard to think about as the next big mechanic that would appear.
The only other one that I've thought of that I definitely didn't come up with on my own, so I have to thank all of the people on the Lorcana community that have, you know, talked through this. But what about cards that you can play on your opponent's turn? So, like, you know, you have a card in your hand that activates, like, whenever an opponent quests, play something, so that you can disrupt their turn when they're in the middle of their thing.
So, I think this is a little interesting because we're seeing it a little bit with this new Beast card. For
Kinda.
when
A little bit,
your
yeah,
opponent
actually.
challenges another card, they would get damaged. Their card would get damaged, so then that Beast can ready.
Yeah.
And so it is activating something during their turn.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And it's a very interesting new thing to think about. Because it you're not doing it, they're activating it, which is something that I haven't even began to think about with Lorcana.
Yep.
And it adds a whole new play style, I think.
Yeah, it's hard because like when you come up with new mechanics like that, or new mechanics like dual ink types or something like that, you don't want it to be so limited that it doesn't have a bunch of utility, because you can basically build like only one archetype around it. But you don't want it to be so widespread that it like completely obliterates the way the game is played. So thank gosh I'm not like a game balancer on this, because there's no shot that I could conceivably manage the way through all of these decisions. But yeah, I think there's just, some fine lines that have to really be made to make sure that you're not disrupting the foundation of the game that's built, but make it, new fun twists to the game.
Absolutely.
And I probably should have said this earlier, but yeah, again, shout out to everybody. We've had tons of comments on this episode. The main three that have given us a ton of background info to consider when talking through some of this would be Zach H, Wayne W, and Maxine M for some of the contributions that they made to the episode and to the thoughts and the future plans of some of these things.
Thank you guys so much. We appreciate the support so much. Thank you guys.
Yeah, we really do, and this was a fun one for sure, and it was so fun we did it twice.
Yeah, so fun we did it twice. Absolutely.
Okay, any final thoughts? Any other mechanics or any other final properties that you want to talk about, or anything else? Does that wrap it up?
I've got one final property.
Okay, let's do it.
Nightmare Before Christmas.
We forgot to talk about that one. That is a good one.
I think so it's not in the Pixar realm of things, it's not in live action, it's in its own claymation realm.
Which I think that's still very much like Disney animation. So I think I would love for them to do like, I don't know, some sort of Halloween special set, or maybe even like a holiday special set that you can use.
It would fit in both.
Yeah, like,
it would fit in Christmas.
Yeah, so like you can use it part of the set, but it's like, rather than being like a full 200 card set, it's like a 60 card like mini set that gets added in, and you do a bunch of holiday stuff in there and throw those in. That'd be really fun.
I think there would be so much hype around that. Like, here comes the new holiday set, Nightmare Before Christmas,
Jack
like
Skellington.
mini set.
Yeah,
people would be so hyped for that. That's one of my favorite Disney movies. One of my favorite like Halloween movies.
I think that's one of the bigger ones for sure. Like I think that holiday movies. I mean, even like Hocus Pocus. I think every year people get super excited for.
That's another one, Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
I like that.
Okay, well that's a good final edition. So we'll leave it at that. And again, everyone, thanks for listening, and we really appreciate all the support. And we will catch you next time.
Thank you guys so much. Bye.